Welcome to Free to Speak, the New Zealand Free Speech Union podcast. If you enjoy the show, subscribe for uncensored conversations and free speech news from New Zealand and beyond.
Kia ora, and welcome to Free to Speak. My name is Dame Giroux. Joining me is Juliet Moses, do we say head of the Jewish Council? Is that the way we... Is
President.
Head? President, not a head. Oh.
Chief.
Much more going on than just a head, yeah. And also a lawyer. And there was something else I wanted to call you. What did I want to call you? That's right. International columnist.
Oh. Okay, I'll take it.
Now writing for Quillette, the wonderful Canadian. Is it Canadian or Australian?
Well, actually, it's Australian-based. It was founded by an Australian, yeah. Clearly.
Interesting. Okay. Nice. So we're going to use your latest piece in Quillette called Biting the Hand. Is that correct?
Yes.
And that's we're going to use it as a springboard to talk about politics and art and sort of the you look at it in the article. It's interesting because you sort of go both ways with it. You've got unruly performers, but also some of the sponsors and everyone who can be a bit problematic for people as well. So what inspired you to write the piece?
That's a very good question. I think it combines a few issues that I'm interested in. Firstly, because it's really focused on charities and not-for-profits in the arts world and cultural institutions as well. So as a lawyer, I do quite a bit of work for charities. And I am also a trustee of a couple of charitable trusts. So I've thought about some of these issues about donors and stuff in that capacity. And then, I think I've always been interested in arts, cultural issues, societal issues, that kind of thing, or, how they're all sort of wrapped up together. Then the very first piece I wrote for Quillette, which was just earlier this year, was about that shambles with the Adelaide Writers' Festival when the whole thing collapsed. And so I wrote an article about that, and then I started thinking about these issues a bit more. And then I heard about a couple of examples that I refer to in my piece. And so all these sort of issues were swirling around in my head about, okay, well, how do these arts and culture institutions handle donors who sometimes can be a bit problematic, shall we say, or, they might have reputational issues, or they might be trying to wield a lot of influence because of their donations. Sometimes it's the artists that are kind of, revolting against the donors in a way, or saying to these institutions, we don't want you to be associated with these donors. But then it also, goes the other way. So, donors sort of saying to these institutions, we've got an issue with this particular artist or whatever. So it was all swirling around in my head, and I wrote to Claire, the editor of Claire Lehman, the editor of Quillette, and I said, I'm kind of toying with this, all this stuff. What do you think? She said, I think it would make a good article. It took me months to actually really find the time and the energy to sit down and write it, because it's a pretty big thing once you get into it. There's a lot, that I was researching and thinking about. So, yeah.
There's a lot of different examples. We could start with the performers. I did have David Kuman, who's obviously friend of ours, but also colleague on the board of the Free Speech Union, on to talk about the Adelaide Festival. I actually got a lot of SHIT for that from a certain journalist we know that will remain unnamed.
Yes, I know exactly who you mean. Yep. And I got a lot as well for my article, by the way, from that same journalist.
Oh,
anyway.
Interesting. Yeah, well, I wasn't firm enough on the free speech aspect of it in this man's who on any other day of the week is very, very censorial, but not when a Hamas supporter is involved, it seems. But what I started discussing or talking about, or really just wanted to bounce with David, because I knew that, David would have an interesting view and it would be a good back and forth. I hadn't really formed a very strong view on it yet. But with being taxpayer funded, I think there's a complication there, like would you have a neo-Nazi at your arts festival funded by the public? Because I make no distinction really between a neo-Nazi and someone like Abdul Randa Fattah.
Randa Abdul Fattah, I think. Yeah.
Abdul
No,
Fattah,
yeah.
the Adelaide festival. I'd make no meaningful distinction there. So, should taxpayers be paying for this? Like, that's all I was asking. And I think that is.
And
Mm.
I actually avoided that question in my piece, in this latest piece, because the whole issue of taxpayer funding and state funding adds another layer of complexity on it. And I was thinking at first about getting into that, and then I thought, no, my God, this is actually long enough as it is and complicated enough as it is without bringing that whole aspect into it as well. But yeah, I mean, I think generally, whether it's taxpayer or whether you're an individual donor or a well-established charitable foundation making donations to another charitable enterprise, whether it's a literary festival or a theatre company or whatever, I mean, I think you do have some rights to, well, put it this way, if you don't like what's going on, you can stop, depending on what your agreement says, if you've got a funding agreement. But, I think pretty much most people will probably say, yeah, if you're giving money and you don't like what's happening with your money, or you don't like the direction of the organization you're giving to or whatever, then yeah, you're probably within your rights to say, yeah, I'm not actually going to fund you anymore. So, yeah, but the question is, does that influence go too far sometimes? Does it become, like, I guess, a form of censorship? There are a lot of difficult issues there.
Yeah, I mean, let's start with Jayson Gillham then. So he's the first example you use. So what happened in this chap's case?
Yeah, so he performed with the Melbourne Symphony Orchestra in 2024. He was a guest pianist. And what he did was, before he played a piece, he decided to get up and make a pronouncement from the stage about, as he saw it, Israel's deliberate targeting of journalists in Gaza. And that, of course, caused a bit of a hue and cry. He hadn't told the orchestra that he was going to do that beforehand. There was a big flurry of activity afterwards. They told him, they cancelled his performance. Then they kind of seemed to try and walk it back and say, oh, well, we won't, you can still perform as long as you promise not to make any kind of political statements from the stage. And he refused, and he said no. Then he took them to court. And so the piece really starts talking about that court case, and he had lost in that court case, like it was just last month. And he had essentially tried to say that his freedom of expression was being interfered with. And the court said, no, the orchestra was within its rights to take account of the fallout, the business consequences of you standing up on stage and making this kind of a statement, was entitled to do that and to act sort of, appropriately or accordingly. And again, that seems to me to be pretty fair, because, I mean, otherwise any performer could stand on stage and make any proclamation they want and say, well, that's just my freedom of speech. I mean, they could give a 10-minute dissertation on, I don't know, Trump or
Yeah.
what's going on in the Russia-Ukraine war or whatever, like it seemed pretty obvious to me that was a sensible outcome. But that's where it starts. And part of the issue with that I was looking at was there were allegations in the court case that the donors and people on the board, particularly focusing on the Jewish ones, of course, had kind of interfered to suppress his freedom of expression. That was the general kind of vibe of what he was trying to say.
But it didn't fly. Like
Didn't fly. He lost.
He lost. So I can't think of anything more narcissistic than that. Like when I read that, I was like, what?
I know. It's where
crazy.
it come to later in my article was why did he think people who had paid to hear, they were coming to a nice concert. For a lot of people, I guess it's a form of escapism. You sit there, you just lose yourself in the music, whatever. Why do they think they need to hear from him? Or what does he think, that they need to hear from him? They haven't paid to hear his political opinions. They haven't asked to hear his political opinions. Why does he think it's his right to foist his political opinions on them, on an audience there to listen to his piano playing?
Well, I mean, I've done theatre in the past, and if I was to do a Shakespeare, but then stop mid-soliloquy and do a sonnet by John Donne, because I happen to think he's the better poet, and then go back to it, the director would absolutely tear me a new one. They'd be entitled to. Now, I don't know why politics would get a free pass over my example there. You're breaking the show. You're breaking the illusion of the show. It's not planned. You haven't told anyone. It's not your show. You're being hired. Like a pianist is a gun for hire, unless he's hired the whole thing himself and it's his tour and he calls the shots.
Sure.
And he's got his own producer running the thing. Very different. But if that's not the case, you could say anything. You could just decide to take all your clothes off, and that would be freedom of expression.
Yeah.
Where does this sense of entitlement come from?
Yeah, well, very good question. It's a form of, like you say, I think it's moral narcissism. It's like, I need to grandstand here and I need everybody to know what a good and self-righteous person I am. Isn't it? That's what I think. I mean, there's a lot of that going on.
There's a lot of it going on. And I was thinking about this the other day. It's almost like with religion having, there was a time when, the Sunday Christian could always say, I go to church on a Sunday, so I'm that guy, like you can trust me. It would cut up in court. He's always on the church on the Sunday and all that kind of stuff. But with the power in some of these institutions waning, we don't have that now. And I think that's where a lot of this comes from. It is a substitute for that kind of thing. It's like, well, I'm good because I just came out and I said this. So like, I'm just explaining virtue signaling, but maybe well,
that's right. And that's the term bully pulpit, right? And I use that somewhere in the article. That's exactly what it is. It's using the bully pulpit.
I did see a reel of it was an opera. I don't know if you've seen this one, but like they weren't main players. They would have been chorus people. And then it's the big chorus at the end where everyone on stage comes on just to sort of wrap everything up. And they're holding the Palestinian flag. And then someone backstage tried to tear it off them.
I saw that, tried to rip it off.
And they got a grip. I don't know whether that was staged or not. I don't know what's going on there. There's always that chance, but like it wouldn't be surprising.
Well, there's similarly, there's also that other example that I give along similar lines in the piece of this again in Australia, the Sydney Theatre Company, where 3 actors came out at the end of the play draped in keffiyehs to take a curtain call, and again caused a big hue and cry. It was not approved. There were recriminations, resignations, donors and subscribers really upset and wrote in. I think, and it was calculated that the company had probably lost 1.5 million from that little stunt.
Wow.
Yeah. So again, just another sort of entitled piece of grandstanding, I guess. To what end?
Yeah.
I mean, they'd say, well, we just wanted to show solidarity with the Palestinians, and the response from the theatre company was, well, you're along the lines of, well, you're perfectly entitled to make political statements, but do it on your own platforms in your own time, kind of thing. Don't use our platform for that.
Yeah, this is interesting, isn't it? Because it's that example of or not well, people watching. There's two Jews here talking about this. That really doesn't play into this. They could be talking about Sudan. They could be talking about anything. The topics could be completely righteous and fantastic. I may agree with them 150%. This is a place of employment.
Oh,
A
exactly.
play is a place of employment. It's no different from a bus depot or whatever it is.
Yeah.
You're under contract. You would imagine that. Well, I don't know if it'll be in a contract, but they might have to start putting them in contracts, because if you're a performer on stage, I would have known that don't just do my own thing. This is something these
I
things
know.
are planned,
Yeah.
and that's right. That they can do it in their own time. Like if people were coming after them in their own time, if they
Mm.
were on Facebook that evening saying what they wanted to say, then that's a very different discussion, isn't it? I
Yeah.
mean, then we can support them. But if
Yeah.
they're being paid, and like as you said, if they're risking, I mean, at $1.5 million, I mean, that they are literally just destroying the income stream of the people that are employing them. So of course they're going to
Exactly.
get upset.
Which comes back to the sort of biting the hand that feeds idea, doesn't it? Are you jeopardizing the organization that's actually paying you? Nobody seems to really think, or these people don't really seem to think about that particularly, but that's the issue.
Or yeah, and the other side of it too probably is that like if you're going to take a risk on a protest action like that, you need to be prepared to fall on your sword. There will be consequences. I mean, if you want to draw, if you want to be a martyr basically and show that this is how strong your commitment is to a cause, I don't think you should be taking court cases and to
that's
try
right.
to say that I had every right to do this. It's like, no, you wanted to do it. You're unemployable now, or people don't want to employ you. But sure, everyone knows how committed you are now.
Yeah.
So okay, so let's look at the some of the cases that you highlighted from the other direction, where the donor themselves was the problem. What's one you'd like to talk about that you think is really an exemplar there?
Well, I think the exemplar is the Sackler family. So the Sacklers, for those who don't know, were the family who developed Purdue, was it Purdue? Yeah, the OxyContin. No, Purdue was the company. OxyContin is the drug that it was basically most heavily associated with the opioid crisis in the United States. So yeah, Purdue was the pharmaceutical company that developed it. Sackler family owned that company. They were heavily involved in financing top galleries and museums around the world. I mean, the Tate Group, the Louvre, the Met, could just go on and on. Had their names on, walls everywhere. And when the opioid crisis sort of became known and became a thing, an artist called Nan Goldin, who's a well-known photographer, began a campaign to get these galleries to essentially divest from Sacklers and to dename. So naming is a very big thing, obviously, with you know, charities and particularly with galleries and museums and well, other things, universities, hospitals, whatever. But I guess that's the kind of, that is like the gold standard to aim for, in a way, for a lot of people, to really preserve their legacy, right? Is to have their name in lights
Yeah.
somewhere. So so the Sackler name was everywhere, all over these art galleries, and it that was actually part of their strategy, sort of to kind of I guess launder themselves in a way, and to embed themselves in high society, and as I say, kind of perpetuate their legacy and that kind of thing. So what happened was this campaign began, and most of these galleries and museums did dename themselves. So they got rid of the name. In fact, there was a court case in the States last year, which was kind of like the final part of the settlement, I think, with the Sackler family, that said that actually, regardless, I think, of what agreements they had with the Sackler family, these institutions have, they could dename themselves. They could kind of remove the Sackler family, and they wouldn't be in breach of their agreements or whatever for doing, if they did so, as long as they didn't disparage the family. Harvard
Oh,
took a
interesting.
little bit of a different route. So they had one of their museums, so they've got museums at Harvard, was named after Arthur M. Sackler. And this is quite interesting. So he died something like 9 years or whatever before the marketing of OxyContin. And and then after he died, his branch of the family cashed out from Purdue. And so Harvard said, actually, because there was this huge, again, campaign to get them to divest. It went over years. And anyway, they decided in the end that they would keep his name up, because they said, yep, look, this is complex, and his legacy is complex, but actually we're not sure that it's fair to hold him accountable for something that happened after his death and when his family had cashed out at that point. But what we will do is put something up on the wall or whatever that kind of contextualizes it and explains what had happened. I thought, yep, that's actually fair. That was quite a nuanced approach in that case.
Yeah. That is good.
But yeah, so the Sackler family were, I think that's the big one. I mean, Epstein had things named after him. MIT had taken a bunch of money from him, and they took it when he was already on a disqualified donor list. So he was already, because remember, he was in trouble a long time ago. And then there'd been, what did he do? I can't even remember the details. He'd done a plea deal or whatever it was. And then, it was sometime later that everything fully exploded in terms of all the details and stuff. But so when he was already on that disqualified donor list, they actually took quite a big donation from him, and then had to fall on their sword and apologize after everything came out and say, we never should have done this. And we actually recognized that we helped elevate his reputation and kind of distract people from the terrible things he was doing. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, that is. Well, I mean, that's, I guess the free speech story there is that if people want to give money and launder their reputations and say, oh, look over there, I'm funding all of these galleries and everything. The protest and bringing to light, are you comfortable with the facts here, of this donor? But I got to say, this, I hope this doesn't come off the wrong way, but I do have some sympathy for some of the academics and people like that were prepared to meet with Epstein after his, after that plea deal. I think it's hard to justify. a lot harder to justify. But, if you got research you want done, if you got a project that you want up, an artistic project or something like that, like these are very expensive paint boxes, and you're desperate. Like I got a story actually attached to this. The first funding I ever got in my life was from James Wallace.
Well, and he comes up in the piece too, right? Because
he comes up in the piece, New Zealander. Interesting story. I'll tell you my story.
Yeah.
So what happened is, so I would have been 24, something like that, very young. It was me, or maybe 24, 25. It was myself, a director and actor, and we were running around making films, and I was basically learning how to write and still acting in short films and bits and pieces like that. And we went to his office and set up a meeting because we wanted him to fund our short film. So we go in there and he's like, really, okay, boys, what have you got for me? And it was like, we got this film. It's going to be amazing. This is going to happen. That's going to happen. And he goes, well, how much do you need? And we said, well, this is where it really is attractive for you, James. We only need $350. And he's like, well, he said, I make films for the film commission. With the film commission, I make films $1 million. It's like, you sure you don't want to go through that process? And maybe no, we don't. We only want $350. And so he just wrote a check and just gave it to us and said, if you have a premiere, just give me a ticket. And we went out and we had really thought that we'd just cracked Paramount Pictures or something, right? Like, because we got our $350.
Oh my
and
God.
do you know what? We made it, and our director was ripping tickets at the Civic, and we put it on at the Winter Garden or the Civic. I can't remember. I think probably the Winter Garden, not the really big one. Well, maybe we did. But we put it on there and we gave him a ticket, and he turned up.
Oh.
He turned up.
Yeah,
Good
well,
on you, boys.
I mean,
But
there's the classic example of denaming, because of course his art trust, after he was convicted, and I guess
we might need a bit more
name
context to him,
suppression
actually,
problems.
Juliet.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
So James Wallace was convicted of sexual assault and perverting the course of justice, or obstructing the course of justice, whatever it was called. And so
with
he
witnesses, wasn't he influencing witnesses and stuff?
Yes,
Was it that kind of
attempting to, I think, And
Yeah,
so
okay.
he was a very, very big patron of the arts. I mean, he had a very big art collection himself. Well, sorry, it was the James Wallace Art Trust or whatever it was called. So after all this happened, all his art, tens of millions of dollars worth of art, all went to another trust without his name. So there's your denaming, your very own foundation that you have set up to hold the art collection that you've built up goes to another trust without your name. And you can 100% see why that would have happened. Because it's a tainted name, obviously.
It's a tainted name, yeah. His money came from meatworks and stuff, I think, originally.
Yes,
he was his
right.
father. Down in the Waikato, I think that was where a lot of his, that operation was. And he was in the arts. And the other thing is I met quite a lot of young actors and filmmakers over the years who would talk to me about going to his place where, I'm going to fund you, come to my house. I'm upstairs. Oh, he's upstairs. You go upstairs and then you get a bit of a surprise, and then they'd either stick around or they wouldn't, they'd run out. And
it was the worst kept secret. I mean, I'm not really.
Everyone knew.
Yeah.
Everyone knew. And, to be honest, at 27 or 28 hearing these stories, I mean, we thought they were kind of funny, which is awful. It's like, haha, you went there. It's like a prank got pulled on you, and then the guy runs out the door. But obviously, for some were assaulted, and these were serious he ended up going to prison, didn't he?
Yeah. Yep.
For serious charges. But
Yep.
yeah, I mean, there's no. See, it's almost like the whole thing of like, can you listen to Michael Jackson? There is an aspect of that.
Well, there is. I mean, yes, there is a bit. It's how do you separate, or can you separate the person from their alleged or real misdeeds? And this is something else that I've tried to bring through in the piece is when you're looking at donors, there is a whole range of apparent misdemeanors that donors are now being held accountable for, or that there are campaigns against them for. So clearly, the Sackler family and James Wallace are at one end of the spectrum, right? Well, the Sackler family is, I guess, responsible for I don't know how many deaths. James Wallace committed crimes. But on the other hand, and I give some examples of this, you now have donors. Again, there's a case in Melbourne where a wealthy Jewish family who have donated to the, the gallery there, NGV, I think it's called, or something, is it whatever, the gallery there, because they're a Jewish family, they're a Zionist family, they give to, Israel-related causes and stuff as well. There was a huge protest outside the gallery, basically just with horrendous signs and chanting horrendous things, because these activists think that the gallery shouldn't be accepting money from Zionists. So, we're talking very far removed from the Sackler situation or the James Wallace situation.
Yeah, they still have the right to protest and everything, but I would expect or want the gallery owners to hold the line there, because
And they did.
that's one of those situations. Yeah, well, that's good. That's good. Yeah. Because if they don't, then it'll just go further and further, won't it? Like,
well, that's right. And this is what I say. It becomes like a purity test.
We'll wrap up soon, but let's just touch on actors. I know it's not really in your piece, but I think this is a zeitgeist now. We've had highly political actors in the past during the civil rights era. Paul Newman, Marlon Brando, Sidney Poitier, Harry Belafonte, all these people. There would have been many, many more. So we've had that. We never. Marlon Brando was political. He sent the what was her name? Someone Little Feather along to get his
their
Oscar
famous Oscars. Yeah.
He did that. So he was always he had an activist spirit to him, definitely. He was sort of forgiven. I think he was forgiven because he's so good. This often happens with a lot of performers and sports people, like when they're exceptional at what they do, people do tend to look the other way. Like Mark Ruffalo is just another actor, really. I mean, he's okay, but like his activism really gets on my nerves when he talks about the climate in Israel and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah, he's complaining about everything, and he's. To be honest, he's just not that smart, and he doesn't really have anything interesting to say. Like, sure, if you've got something interesting to say, maybe, but he's just dull. And oh, sorry, you keep going.
I know, you talk.
Oh, I was just going to say, well, the if we come back to Gaza again, I mean, the one that's really out there the most now is Javier Bardem. Who was, he's prancing around in his keffiyeh and whatever. And I mean, this comes back a bit to separating the art from the artist. I won't watch him now. I know he's in Cape Fear on Netflix or whatever at the moment. I'm like, no, I don't think, I don't want to watch him. I mean, I just don't feel like it. I
Well,
can't
yeah.
separate his acting from the person that I know who he is, you know. That's my choice.
Well, neutrality is very important for an actor, to be able to, switch up and convince you that they are, like Ben Kingsley, for instance. He's Gandhi. He's Yitzhak Stern in Schindler's List,
And then he was,
I don't.
which Nazi was he? He was,
Oh, did he
he was
play
one of the
Eichmann?
Nazis too, which one was he? Oh God, I can't remember. One of the
Was it Eichmann?
Eichmann. I think he was Eichmann. I
Yeah.
think that's right.
Yeah. But I don't know his politics. He's an actor. Like and that neutrality is important. I love John Wayne, and he obviously was pretty out there with his right-wing views. So yeah, there are kind of always exceptions, I guess. Artists like Billy Bragg, I do like his music. His politics can annoy me sometimes, but I guess it's just it's such a gamble. Like
It is, yeah.
Barrera, I think her name was, one of the young Mexican actress who was in the Scream franchise, and they were obviously setting her up with that Jenny Ortega to sort of take on the franchise from Nev Campbell, that she was going. But her Palestine activism ended up getting her fired.
Oh, really?
And, a lot of people were really upset about that. And this is a young person, so you are like, well, I mean, she might not have been. I mean, when I was 22 or 23, I probably would have done something stupid in the name of.
Well,
Joel, yeah.
I mean, some of these people do get pressured into making these statements. That's the other thing.
Yeah.
If you're a young person and you're starting out and you get told you need to say something about Gaza, and this is what happens in some cases, then they probably feel, okay, that's what I have to do. Yeah, so, some people really are pressured and intimidated into saying something, or feel that they have to be able to sort of maintain their, I don't know, legitimacy or whatever it is. I mean, we keep coming back to Gaza, but because that seems to be the only issue that people, I can't think of many other actors in recent times talking about, maybe sometimes they talk about Trump, but not in the same, or maybe in the, maybe in the States, but.
Even Robert De Niro, but I do think that, I mean, if you want to do it, like, it's your career, I guess, but I think people have to understand that, boy, is it a risk. It's a risk because, like, on a topic as explosive as, Israel, Gaza, or even the trans issue, you potentially are saying goodbye to 50% of your audience.
Yeah.
And the other thing is about, like, the classical recital and things like that, and we didn't touch on this. These are safe spaces for a lot of people in that
That's right.
they're not going to hear politics.
That's exactly right. And that's what I was sort of saying about, you sitting there in your kind of dreamlike state, listening to the music or whatever it is. I mean, it's the same, I think when I go to, modern concerts, pop concerts, rock concerts, whatever you want to call them, that to me can be a great concert, can be one of the best experiences. Like, you can be on a high for days afterwards. I don't want to, and I don't care what kind of politics it is or whatever. I really do not want to have that spoiled by having people, getting into politics there. I mean, sure, maybe if you're going to a political type, I don't know, even U2, I suppose you might expect some from U2 or, something like that. But generally, I don't want to hear that. I just want to be, this is great. I just want to be, and you feel like you're all in it together with the audience, right? You're having this like massive sort of group hug where you're just having this amazing time. The Maybe just to come back to that, the sort of where that biting the hand title actually came from, because I think it is also quite a good example, which was a New Zealand example. So that was the Ockham Awards that happened a couple of months ago, which are our top literary awards in New Zealand. And Ockham's are, the corporate sponsor, a property development company. And so a writer got up there who was supposed to be reading an extract from his novel. It's the first novel he's ever written. I think it must have been nominated for something. I don't think it won anything. And he, of course, digressed. And what did he talk about? Let's take a guess. Oh, of course, he started talking about Gaza. And he started kind of excoriating the government, and the Minister of Culture was sitting in the
Paul
front
Goldsmith
row,
was-
and he's sort of, pointing at him and, ticking them off about their position on Gaza. And so then the co-founder of the sponsor of Ockham stood up, and he pinned his speech, basically, apparently, and then said, I don't want this tribalism. I don't like this tribalism, something along those lines. And had a go at this writer for talking in this way. And so that was sort of the, drama of the night. And I know somebody in the audience, I was talking to her recently, and she said, oh God, when he started going off about Gaza, the writer, we're all sitting there going, oh God, can we not? People just, her group did not want to hear it. I'm sure it got some applause, and some people thought it was brave and whatever, but not everybody. And then, so what happened then, to kind of defend himself, the writer wrote a piece about, this is what my novel was about. It's about art's not divisible from politics or whatever. And something about, well, if I'm not biting the hand of the corporate sponsor that feeds me, or, something like that, something about biting the hand of the corporate sponsor, then I'm not kind of being true to myself, was kind of the gist of what he was saying. Yeah. So again, it's like, yep, good on you. Congratulations. Well done. And sure, if the sponsor withdraws or nobody wants to fund you in future or whatever, congratulations. There you go. You've done very well. You
Yeah,
get the
that's
and you might just end up
we
being
now know
hungry.
how committed you are.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. You bit the hand. You got. I think I said something like a morsel of. You had your tasty morsel of moral posturing or something like that, and you might end up being hungry forevermore afterwards. So, congratulations.
You can live off that. There is an aspect, I think, with a lot of these arts award shows and everything, where poor Paul Goldsmith and many other ministers before him go there and just get such a hard time. And it's a really good example. Yeah. It's a really good example of, I think, that the left, a certain type on the left really believing that they own these cultural institutions. Like Goldsmith is an intruder or a guest, and he needs to pay tribute, and we own this, and we're going to say exactly what we want, and all our friends are going to pump us up. It's like, you know what I mean? That real sort of arrogant sense of ownership of this. The reality is, the art is for everyone, and people across the spectrum practice art, and they consume art. And I know so many people in the arts that talk to me quietly. I consider myself on the left still to this day, but they'll talk to me quietly because they don't, good on you for the free speech and all in Israel and all this other stuff, but they don't want to. They feel their clan would reject them. And it's just, they got no right to do that. They have no right to do that, these people, Is art inclusive or not?
Well, that's the thing. And that's also what I, when I'm kind of doing my concluding, but I say, artists are supposed to be able to deal with moral ambiguity and human complexity, And also, I mean, this is a little bit being a bit naughty and stereotyping a bit, but, artists aren't generally themselves known for being like moral exemplars. You know what I mean? Like we can all, as you were talking about before, we can all think of artists, quite famous artists, who, have not behaved particularly well themselves, right? So
I would be one of them.
Who are you? What's that?
I would be one of them. A lack of virtue signaler.
Yeah. So who are you as an artist to, be enforcing these, as I call them, like sort of moral bright lines? Like, it is not easy. This is not easy stuff. There are no black and white answers here. It is tricky stuff. There are institutions that do have to, in order to survive, literary festival, all the kind of organizations we've been talking about, in order to survive, they do have to take donations from people they would probably rather not take them from, but they've got to keep the lights on and they've got to keep acquiring the art if it's a gallery or whatever it is. So yes, they probably do have to make some compromises, and it's not ideal, but that's what I come back to. We're not living in an ideal world, and you would think artists would understand that and sort of be able to grapple with those issues themselves. And if they don't, you do, as we talked about, you risk having these sort of moral purity tests and enforcing one way of seeing the world, or the sort of moral dogmatism,
myopic sort of
prevailing
homogeneous,
orthodoxies, all that kind of stuff, and the diversity of thought, which you would think is important to art, dies, doesn't it? And I think we are seeing that happen a bit. So it's all this kind of stuff that I don't envy. The more I got into this piece, I thought, oh my God, I actually don't envy these organizations having to balance all these different stakeholders and stuff. Not easy.
No, it's interesting. It's complex. It's complex from a free speech perspective as well. But no, it's a great piece, Juliet. So we'll wrap it up. Lovely to have you. Love you to chat as always.
Thank you.
To chat.
Nice to chat. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, keep writing, keep fighting the good fight, and we'll speak soon.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you for listening to Free to Speak. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and consider sharing the podcast with others. We release new episodes regularly, and subscribing is the easiest way to stay up to date. If you have any questions, feedback or suggestions, you can contact us at podcast@fsu.nz. If you want to find out more about the New Zealand Free Speech Union, visit fsu.nz.